So today we're going to be talking about deconstructing scientific literature and how in the world to do that when you are researching in the age of ease. So the first question to ask is, what is good literature? You know, there's a lot of literature out there, and sometimes it's hard to actually figure out what's good and what's not. So some of the major common misconceptions about research and literature. The first one is the longer the title, the better the article, which really isn't necessarily true. Some articles have 1 word or 2 words as the title, and it has just as much important information as some articles that have 15 to 20 words as the title. The next one, the longer the article, the more relevant information. Not always happens, because there are some journals that, like Nature, Science, Letters to Nature, Scientific American, stuff like that, they have articles that are only 2 pages, and they contain just as much information as an article that's 20 pages, just maybe not as in-depth, but it's still, really, really good information. If the article is not exactly your topic, it is not a good article. The whole essence of research is to be able to take information that you've read or research that's been done by somebody else and, make it adapt to what you're talking about. So really, a lot of times, the majority of times, you're not going to find a journal article that's exactly what you're looking for, exactly what you're talking about. And you're going to have to tweak little bits and parts of it, and then kind of make them fit to what you're writing about in your paper. And that's the whole thing about creating a literature review and to be able to write and do research, is that you have to be able to know what's the most important thing that somebody else is trying to say and how it's going to be beneficial in your research and writing. The last one, you would get all your research done in a day. Most of us know that that's not true. It takes more than 1 day. It takes more than a sitting to actually get all the information you want, because a lot of times either you have a topic that has not a lot of research on specifically that topic, or you get a topic that has about 10,000 articles on it. So you have to be able to, find your way through all the information and really hone in on what your focus is within the research. The next is really be prepared to be scavengers. The research is not going to find you. You really do have to dedicate time to finding the things that are really going to be helpful for you. And there's a lot of things that can happen, and you can get upset, but just don't throw your computer. Try different search terms. What you search and how you search it is really imperative to what you actually come back with. The one thing that I always tell people whenever they come in and they aren't finding articles is that if you type in one search term, and then all caps and then another search term, it splits apart the phrase. So instead of saying blank and blank, just all lowercase, if you split them to where you have the first word lowercase and then all caps and then the second word, it helps you get more articles that way. Drink coffee, eat ice cream. It could be a long night sitting there and, going in and really honing in on your research and diving into the library's databases. But really, one of the super key things is to write down all the search terms you've used. What has worked, what hasn't worked, what kind of information you get with what search terms. That kind of information will help you, especially when you get to the capstone level of writing and you have, 50 to 100 articles that you're looking through. You really are going to have to, remember what worked for you. And if you lose an article, you have to know how to get it back. So that's a good thing to do. So read at your own risk. I mean, it's the common misconception that we have to read every single sentence in every single article, but you really don't, unless you're trying to mimic their study. The major things to focus on are the abstract, the introduction, the discussion, the conclusion, and the references. The abstract, as we know, is basically a summary of the entire paper. The introduction kind of gives you here's what's coming, historical context, kind of the current need for all this information or the research that they're doing. The discussion kind of tells you the implications of everything that they found as a result, and then the conclusion just kind of gives a final check about everything that they've talked about and really kind of hones in on what is the future of this research path. The references are really important. Most people don't really think about those, but if you're searching for articles and you end up only finding like one on the database or only a handful, and you need a lot more than a handful, something to do is to actually go into the articles that you have found and look at their references, and then read their references and find that, those articles and start reading those. Why you should read those. Basically, reading the abstract can tell you exactly what the article is going to be about and if it's actually pertinent to what you're going to write about in your paper. There's no point in reading an entire article and then realizing at the end, oh wait, this isn't actually worth it. And then why the references, as I've said before, you can go and find another article to add to your to your research bank. Scientific literature is not meant to scare or intimidate you. It is meant to inform those that are seeking specific information. So just always keep that in mind, that yes, some articles can be long, tedious, and full of really intense terminology, but you really don't. You can tackle it section by section and, make sure that the only information that you're taking away from it has something to do with what you're discussing in your paper. So the abstract, these are just two abstracts here. One of them is quite easy to understand. It's written for a more generalized audience. This other one, the geology article, is not written for a generalized audience. It's quite complex, the article, and the different abstracts tell you different things. But the most important thing about the abstract is that it does sum up the entire paper within roughly about 250 to 300 words. So that's about how long they are. So, you can really hone in on what that specific article is going to tell you with just 250 words. And that's a good idea of how to start doing research when you think that you found a good article. The introduction. So basically the introduction is background on all of the past studies that have been conducted on that topic, and ends with how the authors are going to bring a new light to that foundational research. So, like I said, it goes from the big picture and comes down to what they're going to do within their project. It's a major pathway to understanding the topic at hand, and it discusses the context, the need, the task, and the objective of the study. So, if you guys look at the hourglass figure, that's kind of what your introduction would want to do. You want to, set up the historical context, what has happened through history that, has brought us to where we are today in terms of this specific research idea, the current need for that, this research to take place, the task, which is basically what this project is going to be, what this research is going to be doing, and then the objective of the study is what they are trying to determine, what their major finding hopes to be. So the discussion and conclusion is basically just the importance of the study, makes a connection between what happened, what they found during the study, and the implications to the greater community. All professors are typically say, you need to answer the so what question. That's what the discussion does. It really kind of shows or answers what is the importance of the research being conducted. So, when you write your own discussions and conclusions to your papers, you really want to make sure that you have the information and the implications of what you found and how it's going to impact the greater good. So, includes a summary of the key results, discussion of the key implications, readdresses the objectives outlined in the introduction, and then the future directions of research and study. You always want to make sure that those are the main things that you have in your discussion. A lot of papers don't have a conclusion; they just write their conclusion embedded within the discussion. But you can separate them. But the main thing that you need to have are these things right here, the key things. So when you take on an article, it's easy to forget what you have read and from what article you got it from. So one key thing to do is to put the highlighter away. It's once you've tackled more than 2 or 3 articles, it's very hard, and you'll get lost in a sea of highlights. One good thing that you can do is actually have the article either on your computer or printed. I don't like to read them on a computer, but you can print them, have it in front of you, and then take notes. You can do it, annotate your references. Taking notes is always the best thing to do because you can pull, and also as you take your notes, you're paraphrasing what the article is saying. So that kind of helps you in terms of how you're going to start paraphrasing once you begin writing, because if you take just little notes here and there, it already starts the paraphrasing technique. So typically annotations have summaries of the work, context and need, objective, key results, conclusion. Yeah. And then something else to think about is, like, as you're taking notes, really talk about how that literature is going to work in your paper, what section it'll go in, how it's going to either address or defend an argument in your paper, how it's going to work within your paper. And that'll always help you once you start actually writing, taking the sea of articles that you have and the notes that you have, really starting to format and organize the flow of your paper. Thank you very much.